The tradwife and ex-tradwife content has been taking social media and regular media by storm. I've been talking about it, and each time I make content on it, I get people jumping into my comment section. Some understand where I'm coming from. They leave their stories, they speak from their perspective. Other people are oblivious and acting like, simply saying have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, elemental P is a bad thing. And that means that you're anti marriage or anti babies or whatever. Folks simply do not want women. Some folks simply do not want women to have a game plan or a fallback plan. But they would understand that sometimes businesses need to dissolve. They simply act like marriage isn't a contract that sometimes need to be dissolved. Anyways, I'm going to keep hammering it home because I speak to women and I want women to be able to survive regardless of marital status, regardless of if you choose to be married, if you choose to get divorced, if you choose to have kids, if you choose to be child free. Women should have choices and women should be able to survive regardless. So I am going to continue to talk about this man, John, the herbalist, took exception to this. He said the real moral of the story is trad wives need traditional husbands to be successful. Gentlemen, if you want this kind of woman, you need to be this kind of man. So he is still talking to men. And I'm like, I'm not talking to you. And I'm like, that's literally not the point I'm making because my content is for women. And I keep telling these people that you want to talk to men, tell men to be better people. Go over to your spaces and talk to men. But I'm like, that's literally not the point I'm making, regardless of the men. Women need to be able to survive. Things happen, people die, people leave. I want women to survive. And then he says, I know very well the point you're making, the atomized antenatal point. That's not the point I'm ever making. Unfortunately, though, the facts are that children need a parent at home and we need to be making children. We do not need to be making children. And when women stay home, women are the ones that sacrifice our finances. Women are the ones that sacrifice our retirement plans. And if the man were to leave, if the man were to get disabled while at work or on the way to work or have some kind of health issue, then the woman would be stuck holding the bag. And if that woman hasn't secured her education and like career experience, she is SOL. And these men keep trying to push back on my pages, acting like, I'm anti family. No, I just want women to be able to survive regardless of marital status. So this woman said, my husband passed away in 2019 after 23 years of marriage. Because he was unable to get his citizenship before he died, I was left with nothing. I also lost 15 years of my own Social Security credits because after 7 years of not filing taxes, the IRS wipes your slate clean. Friends and family who priorly, I'm not sure if that's a word, priorly gushed that I was the best mom and had the perfect family were suddenly calling me a lazy bum. Get a job. With what resume? Who would hire a 41-year-old with no resume? I promptly lost housing and my children were removed from my care. Within 6 months, everything I ever worked for was gone and nobody would talk to me because I wasn't perfect anymore. I ended up meeting someone and got a surprise pregnancy at 44. So I'm once again a stay at home mom, but I'm using this time to get some schooling under my belt. The world can be an incredibly cruel place. And that's the thing. Like, people keep leaving these comments in my comment section about what happened and how they were left destitute and impoverished. And I share this because I want women to not end up like this. This woman says, my grandmother was traumatized when my grandfather left her behind with 5 kids. She never mentally recovered. All it takes for the trad lifestyle illusion to shatter is the man leaving the picture. This is why feminism exists. Absolutely. Feminism exists because women had to work. Women have to work. Women have to provide, especially if the man walks away, leaves, becomes disabled, or whatever. Women have to provide, and women have to provide for these children because women are the ones that are typically the caretakers. So when women don't have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, elemental P, that means that the children will also suffer. Now, who wants children to suffer? Not me, but the people who really want women to not have plan B, C, D, E, F, G, L, M, N, O, P are setting women up. Okay, let's do this last one. This woman says, stay at home wife and mom here, 35 years. Lots of ups and downs, and my husband has always respected me and taken care of us. I do have to say, if he would have ditched us when we were young, I would have been screwed. I handle our finances. Make sure you have a backup plan. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and it works for you, your man sees you as an equal partner, despite the fact that you're not bringing in income, do it. I am all for women choosing what they want to do and sticking with it. I am not here to dictate how people live. I support the child free movement. I support the women who are doing the whole no dating, no marriage, no. But I do what you want, ladies. Just be able to do it and survive and thrive. That's it. That's all. Now I'm about to go into this Time magazine article that is talking about coverture and the history of tradwives. So that is going to be in the next video, or part 2 if you are on my YouTube. This is a great article from Time magazine, and I'm not going to do the whole article because it's long. And it speaks about coverture and how women were basically second-class citizens and what feminism was really fighting for. And I didn't learn about coverture in history. This should be in American history because this was how women were treated in this country, but we don't talk about this. Well, at least I didn't have this lesson in like high school or anything. But let's get into this article from Time, The Truth About the Past That Tradwives Want to Revive. So I skip over some of this because it's talking about S.D. Williams, and we've already talked about her on my page. Now let's just jump into the meat of the article. Tradwives have not escaped the notice of journalists and social commentators who track their popular rise on various social media platforms. Some analyses of the tradwife trend reference the 1950s, while other commentators focus on influencers like Hannah Nealman of Ballerina Farm fame, who performed the role of 19th century homesteaders despite the occlusion of her husband's inherited wealth. Much of the ideology behind the fad has much deeper and more insidious roots in American history. Although the use of social media and the power of tradwife influencers may be new, the use of media to reinforce conservative social norms is not. Women of the 18th century Anglo-America, for example, were inundated by conduct literature, writing in magazines, newspapers, and novels that dictated how they ought to behave, especially in their marriages. Conduct literature provided women and men with pointed guidance about how to choose a spouse. Women were ostensibly imbued with a significant choice in this regard, yet this choice was highly circumscribed. Once she wed, she had little choice remaining within this marital union. The good wife, for example, was to be strictly and conscientiously virtuous, chaste, pure, and unblemished in every thought, word, and deed. More prescriptions follow. She is humble and modest from reason and conviction, submissive from choice, and obedient from inclination. She was the helpmeet of her husband, always making it her business to serve and oblige him. Her happiness was contingent upon his own. 18th and early 19th century American women's submission was not merely suggested in prescriptive literature, it also had the force of law. Married women lived under the legal doctrine of coverture, in which their individual legal identities were subsumed under those of their husbands. The oft-cited legal commentator Sir William Blackstone, foreshadowing the refrain of tradwives today, asserted that wives' submission to their husbands was for her protection and benefit, making her a favorite under the law. Now, this is what I was talking about with the coverture doctrine. This is something that we really, really need to understand. Women did not own our own bodies. Women were the property first of their fathers, then to be passed to their husbands. Women did not own ourselves. We were literally owned by a man. And so this is the reason why going backwards, being anti-feminist is so silly, is actually quite dumb, because you were property, and property cannot be harmed by its owner. The same way slaves cannot be harmed by their master, because the master owns them. All right, let me continue. In reality, Coverture erased wives' independent legal identities under the guise of protection and care from husbands. This legal framework dictated that a married woman owned no property in her own name. Any wages she earned belonged to her husband. Under coverture, wives had no clearly defined parental rights, and their bodies were not their own. Marital rape, for example, was not considered a crime in the 18th century and did not become a crime in all 50 states until 1993. Now, to the anti feminist, do you want to go back to a time where your body is not your own, where you can just be handled however your husband sees fit, simply because you are his property? If you would like to go back to that time, then you will keep hammering that narrative. But if you actually like being free, then you should be thanking the feminists of the past that allowed us to actually have some freedoms. In certain circumstances, domestic abuse was condoned as a corrective measure to the submissive wife. Blackstone's commentaries indicate that moderate correction was permissible if it fell within reasonable bounds. Women's access to divorce in early American history was likewise limited. Some colonies and later states permitted divorce under certain circumstances, and the number of states providing for access to marital separation would expand over time, though relatively few women availed themselves of this legal mechanism. Given the other stringencies of coverture, life as a single woman and a single mother likely proved a greater trial for many. Now, with the Christo fascists and the whole GOP coming for no fault divorce, they want to go back to a time where women were basically stuck. And that is another reason why I continue to hammer these topics, because I like women to have choices and opportunities. If there is violence, financial abuse, whatever inside of a marriage, women should have rights to move around just as men should have rights to move around. 18th and 19th century women did not possess rights as full citizens in the United States. Historically, citizenship rights have been linked to gender, wherein the obligations and thus benefits of citizenship depended on sex. Tradwives who claim that women are naturally suited for submission to male authority and thus deserved protection from men are implicitly condoning women's second class citizenship. Tell me that y'all read this in history. Did your American history class let y'all know that women were literally not full citizens? Because I don't remember this. I don't recall this. I had to learn this on my own, because this country was built on sexism and racism. And so it does not include in its curriculum how it kept women and non-white folks as second class citizens. So imagine being both a non-white person and a woman. Coverture thus cast a long shadow over women's rights in American history. Each generation of American women seemingly needed to be reminded through the law, economic constraints, and even now in social media of the naturalness of her submissive role. They have to keep telling us that we're supposed to be submissive. These constant reminders, however, suggest equally constant remonstrations from women, albeit with mixed results. In the 19th century, for example, women's organizations sought to change the law at state level to allow married women to own property in some circumstances, finding some success, but it was not until the 1970s that married women had the right to obtain credit cards separate from their husbands. The 19th Amendment's passage in 1920, nearly a century and a half after this nation's founding, granted some women suffrage, though it would be decades before all women could vote. So, also, women, do you plan on giving back your right to vote? Do you plan on giving back your right to property? Like I said, I'm not going to belabor this whole article because some of these things that we have talked about, but feminists have gotten us to the point of where we have everything that we have today. Whether or not you agree with the feminism of right now, acting like you want to go back, Tell me, anti-feminists, which rights and freedoms would you give back that were won? And recognize that you have the right to not vote if you choose not to. You have the right to stay married if that's what you choose to. But make sure that you just do that for yourselves and leave those of us who actually like rights, like to have rights and freedoms. Leave the rest of us alone. All right, y'all, jump in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this article. Find it on time so you can read the whole thing. But let me know what you think so far. Don't forget to like, comment, share. If you made it this far and you haven't followed or subscribed, go ahead and hit the follow button.